This is part of a series of videos covering the Al-Kitab textbook vocabulary to help you prepare for your Arabic 131 course. And right now we are reviewing Lesson 1, Vocabulary. And we finished off last video, we quickly got to walida, which is a mother. We've covered this word in the past in our Alif Ba textbook vocabulary, but I want to go back because I kind of rushed through some things that are important, worth mentioning. So we were talking about this verb amala, amila, amila, which is to work, or it both means to work, as in a verb that you present. Hey, this is the verb to work, amila, amila with an ayn, but it also means he worked, because it's our past tense conjugation for he did something. So third person masculine singular. The other thing I that's very important to mention with this verb, amila, is you can put your profession immediately after it. And it means I work as, and then whatever it is that you work as. For instance, I can say amal, that's the present tense conjugation for I am working or I habitually work, right? Amal, and then I could say ustad. Amal, ustad. I work as a professor. Or amal, uh, mudarris. Amal, mudarris. I work as a teacher. If you wanted to talk about your mom, maybe your mom is a doctor, a medical doctor. هي تعمل طبيبة. هي تعمل طبيبة. She works as a doctor. Let's say you want to talk about your dad. هو يعمل, he works, and then you would have whatever his profession is. Let's say he's an engineer. مهندس, مهندس. هو يعمل مهندس. And by the way, I will be uploading a series of videos in a separate playlist on this YouTube channel that will not be as pretty. It'll be based on an Excel spreadsheet of different types of um, themed vocabulary. One of those themed vocabulary lists will be jobs and occupations. So you can look at this list, or you can just look at your Arabic dictionary, and you can find, okay, what does my sister do? What does my brother do for a living? And then you can use this verb هو يعمل, and then هي تعمل. So this is how you would use this verb to indicate someone's profession, their job, their career. Also, I think it's worth revisiting this set of slides here that we had on Egypt, where we were indicating nationality here, and that someone belonged to Cairo, for instance. The concept here that I want to talk a little bit more about is the concept of a nisba, what's known as what is called a nisba adjective. And what we do in Arabic sometimes is we will take either a proper name or a place name, some type of a noun, like for instance in this case it's Egypt, right? Misr, Misr, and we will make it into what is known as a nisba adjective by adding the ya to the end of the word. Now, if there's a ya already there, we will remove it. If there's a ya followed by an aleph already there, we will remove it before we add this ya. If the word the is at the front of the noun, the proper name or the noun, we will remove that the prefix. So the example here is at the bottom of the slide, right? Huwa min Medinat al-Qahira. Huwa min Medinat al-Qahira. He is from the city of the Cairo. You remember in Arabic, some of these place names, we don't just call them Cairo or Qahira, we say the Qahira, right? So you just have to memorize which ones. But if If we have the word the on the front of that proper name, we will remove it before we make it into a nisba adjective. If we have a tamarbuta at the end of the word, we will remove it before we make it a nisba adjective. So that's why you see these two X's here on the slide. One is underneath the word the prefix the, and one is underneath the tamarbuta. So to create nisba adjectives, to say Egyptian instead of Egypt, to say Cairoene or Cairoite instead of Cairo. We will do these different things to make this word into a nisba adjective. So he can now say Ana Misri, or whatever he's working on, that pot, that clay pottery that he's working on. Hua Misri, it's Egyptian, right? It is Egyptian. And then we already talked about Nahnu Misriyun. We use, by the way, here, when you have nisba adjectives, oftentimes you can make them plural. Actually, all nisba adjectives can be made plural if they're masculine or mixed group of masculine and feminine. They can be made plural by adding the suffix un to the end of the word. So you have misri, that's one Egyptian thing or person, and then you can make it a co-ed group by just adding un to the end of that. So instead of Misri, it's Misriyun. You might also see Misriyin instead of Misriyun. So it could be a second ya instead of the wow there, and then the noon. So Misriyun or Misriyin. Um, there's a feminine version of this we'll cover on the next slide. And then we already talked about how to take al-Qahira and make it to into a nisba form and say Qahiri, Qahiri. So that is a little summary, a short summary uh, of nisba adjectives. Let's talk about the feminine. So here on this slide, instead of adding just the ya to make Misr a nisba adjective, if you want to make it a feminine nisba adjective, you add a ya and a ta marbuta. So instead of misri, it's misriya, misriya instead of misri, misriya instead of misri. And then if you want to make that a group of feminine Egyptian people or things, then you will open up that tamarbuta or remove that tamarbuta and place an alif ta as the suffix. These are what are known as, on the previous slide, the un, and this at here, these are known as sound plurals, where you're taking the stem of the word that is a singular form and you're just adding a suffix to make the word plural. And just adding that suffix, it shows that it's a sound plural. But if you have to go into the stem of the word, the original singular form, and break it apart and remove letters or add letters to make the word plural, that is what is known as a broken plural word, a broken plural. And so you have to memorize a lot of these plurals. So the feminine version, plural form of a nisba adjective, you always add an alif and then a ta. So it's misriyat, misriyat, nahnu, nahnu, misriyat. And of course, she's Kairoene or Kairoite, and she's saying, Ana Ana Qahiriya. Instead of Qahiri, because she's a lady, she says, Ana Qahiriya. Now, we talked about this interrogative particle, this word men, which means who, and we talked about mintaka, and manatik. This is areas, region. Now, let's talk about this nafs. Nafs is same. Nafs, nafs, nafs. But if we want to say something is the same, we add the word the as a prefix after it and then put whatever is going to be the same, right? So if you want to say the same house, you're going to say nafs al, and then you're going to add whatever noun that's the same, right? So nafs al bayt, the same house. Nafs al sayyara, the same car. In this case, we have on the slide nafs al shay, the same thing. So just remember, if you want to say the same and then something, you're gonna say nafs, then you're gonna add the word the as a prefix, and then you'll put your noun that you want to say is the same. Nafs al kitab, the same book. Now, we already did walid, which is a dad, and we've gone over this in Aleph Ba vocabulary. Walid is a dad, a father. Walid, walid. And a mom, a mother, is a walida, 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 walida. And of course, if you want to say my mother or my mom, you're going to add that possessive pronoun suffix that is the ya, but the sound that it's going to make for us here is not a y, it's not a y sound, it's an e sound. So it's walidati, walidati, walidati. That's my mom. And for dad, you would say walidi, 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 my dad, right? Walidi, walidati, right? Mother of mine and dad of mine. Walid, walidi, and walidati. That ta marbuta opens up, that tied ta opens up, and it becomes a ta when we add a suffix to it. All right. Now, here's a new question word or interrogative particle. This word is mada, mada. In the past, in our Aleph Ba textbook vocabulary, you learned the interrogative particle, the question word ma, which means what. Ma means what. But ma, we only use for non-verbs. We use that question word what in front of non-verbs. If you want to say, ماذا تعمل, what do you do for a living? What is your work, right? ماذا تعمل, you have to use this question word what for verbs. ماذا is used in front of verbs. So you don't say ما تعمل, what do you do for a living? What is your work? What are you working? What are you working? You say ماذا تعمل, ماذا تعملين. You use ماذا instead of ما. ماذا تعملين, ماذا تعمل, ماذا تعملين. What do you do for a living? What is your work? What are you working on? And then here is another interrogative particle, another question word that we use. Remember, in the past we've said the word is most often in an Arabic sentence is implied, it's not written, right? So you could say, Al Bayt Jamil, the house is beautiful. Is implied. Al Bayt, the house, is implied, and then Jamil, the house is beautiful. But if you want to ask a question, you use you actually do use the word are or is or do. And the way you do that is you say hal. Hal. It's not like كيف الحال, the condition word that you saw before. This is a soft age. So it's not hal, it's hal. 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 هل أنت بخير? Are you well? هل أنت بخير? Or هل هل البيت جميل؟ هل البيت جميل? Is the house beautiful? هل البيت جميل? And remember, this is our question word for asking are or is or do. Now, that is the conclusion of your lesson one vocabulary for the Al Kitab textbook. We will cover in the next video lesson two vocabulary.